Jurassic Park. Jurassic has had an interesting evolution. With 6 movies currently out, a 7th one that's coming next year, an actually really good TV show, and a mostly loving fan base. Jurassic has spawned a lot of things in culture, and it was the first ever movie to implement really good CGI. However, the following movies after the first one have been questionable in quality, with not a lot of people liking the new movies as much. Now, I felt like some of the movies in the Jurassic franchise could use some work, as well as King Cretaceous Season 4 and 5, since those are the weakest seasons. So this is the birth of a new series on this channel, Rewriting Jurassic. I might rewrite some different movies in the future if you want. I was inspired to make this video by Red Raptor Wright, since he has some really good essays on Jurassic and dinosaur media in general. So let's get into the first episode of this new series, Rewriting the Lost World Jurassic Park. Now, The Lost World, to many people, including myself to some extent, is the only really good Jurassic Park movie sequel. To some extent. A lot of critics, like Nostalgia Critic, have a lot of problems with it. That really makes no sense at all. Again, Red Raptor Wright is the main critic I go to because he is the most believable with his essay on Nostalgia Critic's review on The Lost World. It is also the main resource I go to for information about this film, as well as taking information from my own viewing of the film. There are 4 main scenes in the movie where I would go back and make changes to, with that being the worker village scene and the arrival at the boat carrying the Rex's scene, as well as 2 additional scenes implemented. One of these scenes is actually from the original draft of the Lost World film before Steven Spielberg came in and Steven Spielberged it up. I also want to shed light on characters that were completely forgotten about in the 3rd act. Also, deleted scenes would be implemented that I think should have been in. Now keep in mind, this rewrite is in today's standards of filmmaking, which means plot points from the other new Jurassic World films would be taken in. This won't really be necessary for The Lost World, since it doesn't really need any plot points taken from the newer movies, but it might be something like that in the future. Plot points might be from Jurassic World 1, Jurassic Park, Camp Cretaceous, and maybe some of Dominion and Fallen Kingdom too, a little bit. Finally, with that out of the way, we can get into the meat of this video. Now keep in mind, this film will have the least amount of changes compared to the others. The first act will only have deleted scenes that were cut to be added. The first will be the scene where Peter Ludlow explains about the Compy attack that happened on Isla Sorna and tells about all the InGen representatives about his plan for bringing dinosaurs into the mainland. No major changes going forward until we get to the cut scene with Ajay and Roland Tembo, with them talking about heading to Isla Sorna. However, there is an extra scene added at the end where when Roland asks what quarry could be better than his trophies, where Ajay actually says a dinosaur or a T-Rex instead of just cutting bear. It would give some more context to how Roland got to Sorna instead of leaving it ambiguous to the audience. The film would actually stay relatively the same, besides some small parts, before the Doe Rex enters the camp. Both Roland, Burke, and Ludlow talk about the fauna of this side of Sorna. Roland brings up the files or papers he had back in the chase for the dinosaurs at their original camp, coming across 2 species, first being Pteranodon, only being seen at the end of the original story, bringing up that Pteranodons were actually living awfully close to the raptors' nesting site, as well as the worker village. The raptors would actually hunt them for food on the cliffs they reside in. I got this idea from Prehistoric Planet when the raptors are hunting the pterosaurs, and I adapted it to this rewrite. With raptors hunting their babies and the adults, this turn would cause the Pteranodons to become abnormally aggressive to everything in order to keep their young safe. They also prey on the tiger raptor's eggs, too. Eggs! The other creature mentioned in InGen's files is the Carnotaurus, only being seen in the book, but now being referenced in this movie. But oh, there's so much more about these things. The file says that there are currently only 2 left on Sorna, a mating pair. It also talks about their unique ability to camouflage. The reason to this is because of the relatively incomplete genome of the Carno at the time. So, more gene splicing and editing was made for the species back then. The genetic modification was mainly in the skin pattern though. Now, keep in mind, I don't really know anything about skin modification or really genetic modification in general, so feel free to correct me in the comments. So without much DNA for the Carnotaurus, they took the DNA of chameleons for its skin pattern, allowing them to camouflage, but due to them being a different species completely, their camouflage was more advanced. Their sound effects are the exact same from nublar carnos, and they look mostly the same, and they also had chameleon-type eyes and larger horns. Also, right after Dieter Stark's death, Ajay looks back to see the two carnos in the trees, recreating that iconic scene. The Rex attack on the camp stays relatively the same, with her chasing everybody. The long grass scene was also not changed. But in the original, Ajay gets killed off-screen by the raptors, even though he literally yelled, "Don't go into the long grass," which leads us into the first new scene. Ajay watches people running into the long grass, getting killed by raptors. Ajay knows better, and he runs back the way he came, knowing the Doe Rex has had her fill. If not, he doesn't move. The Rex can't see him. That is, if he is brave enough to stay in one spot and not run. As he makes his way back through the trail to Ludlow and Roland, he finds Carter's body stuck in the mud. But something is not right. His torso has been ripped open, and organs were missing. The Rex's foot could never have ripped open his chest by stepping on it. He assumed that the Rex must have turned around and eaten him. But the more he stared at Carter's corpse, the more he realized that the wound was too small for a T-Rex to rip open. The Rex's mouth would have covered the entire body, and his chest wouldn't even be touched by her teeth. His revelation only became proven when he saw that the corpse was moving. What suddenly looked like his kidney was lifted out of his stomach by seemingly nothing. Then the environment had grown teeth, and in a flash, it was gone. How, he thought, was the island itself alive? But then he heard a snort of a creature. It came from the exact same place where the trees and bushes seemingly ate Carter's kidney. It wasn't the environment. It was an animal disguised as the environment, or more likely, camouflaging itself. He took out a flashlight in his backpack and turned it on. The background foliage illuminated, but the creature's disguise was blown. It was long and slender, with a muscular tail. Its arms were even more pathetic than the Tyrannosaur's. But most frightening of all, it had two bull-like horns on the top of its head. But when he had flashed the light, the creature's head darted up. It had camouflaged back into the environment, even though the light illuminated by its shadow was still showing it. And Carter knew it was staring at him now. Its ability to camouflage so well and so fast was incredible. He chuckled a little bit. He didn't think it was hostile. It would have attacked him by now if it did. And it had just had a meal. With that in mind, he turned the flashlight on and off, watching its incredible camo. He was so focused on its skin pattern, he failed to notice that its head flinching each time he turned the light on and off. Even if Roland didn't manage to get a bull Rex, this thing's horns would look amazing on its wall. As he was thinking about the dinosaur's stuffed head on Roland's wall, the creature had seemingly finally had enough of the blinding light and roared. It caught Ajay off guard so badly, he dropped his flashlight, seemingly breaking it. He scrambles to find the flashlight in the dark. Kneeling down, he grabs it, but the light won't work. He bangs on it, not knowing that large footsteps were getting closer. A large snarl comes from his side. He doesn't see it from looking above, but noticing that the mud and dirt were seemingly coming up from the ground. It was then he realized that the dirt spire was the creature's leg, attempting to camouflage its foot with the ground. Another snarl came from his right side. He saw that the foliage was moving, but as if it was coming closer, there was a second one. He caught a glimpse of its horns as it was moving, not bothering to camouflage. Its horns were smaller than the first one. It must have been a different sex. The one to his left nudged him. He fell to the ground with the light turning back on, blinding the other Carnotaurus straight in the eye. In anger, the monstrous creature steps on the flashlight along with his hand, breaking it for good. The male, angered that its mate has been disturbed, bites Ajay's waist, lifting him up in the air. The 7-foot animal then puts its foot on Ajay's leg and then rips upward, ripping him in half. Ajay screams, goes silent. One Carnotaurus picks up Carter's body, while the other one carries the remains of Ajay's upper half in its mouth as they disappear into the shrubs. Meanwhile, while Roland, Ludlow, and the remaining survivors put the T-Rex into the cage, Roland hears Ajay's disorienting screams. He runs to see what happens, only to find his lower half. The one strong poacher sheds a tear at the loss of his friend. He got his buck, but at what cost? Man, as I'm writing this part of the script, I realize this video is going to be a lot longer than I thought. Anyway, this additional scene gives Roland a little bit more justification to leave the island, and gives Ajay a proper death. This also is foreshadowed with the addition of the deleted scene in the beginning, as well as before the Dorex attack, establishing Carnotaurus as a dinosaur on Sorna. Now, the worker village will remain mostly unchanged, but for one part. You know what it is. Everyone who has seen The Lost World knows it. It's Kelly dropkicking a raptor to its death. Yeah, literally everyone says this scene is horrible. Even the biggest Lost World lovers say this scene was very unnecessary and horrible. So, let's find a way to make it less bad. Instead of her dropkicking it, she grabs a shotgun from up top and lands on top of it, then guns it down for the window. Nah, I'm kidding. Now we come to the hardest part of me making this rewrite. This is the part where Sarah is dodging all of the raptors on the roof. Now it plays out the exact same until Sarah is on the second roof with the spotlights, and she decides to use the spotlight to get the attention of the pterosaur flock on the cliff, including pteranodons and Geostorbergia. The pterosaurs take notice of the shiny things, since they like light according to Camp Cretaceous, and noticing that their predators are in their area, they attack, with one of the Geostorbergia being on top of the roof and another pteranodon being on bottom. This replaces the scene where Sarah is removing the roof tiles, causing the pterosaurs to fall on top of each other and fight. Nick Van Owen arrives with the rescue helicopter. However, when the Geostorbergia looks back, ominously, recreating that scene from Jurassic Park 3. This will be a theme going on for these rewrites, but I thought it would be funny. The pterosaurs try to attack the group, with them successfully warding off the raptor. However, they notice that the chopper is there with huge blaring lights, so they go attack it instead. Now, I know that in reality that pterosaurs would never really attack a chopper. And you would be right. But the Sorna pterosaurs have never seen a helicopter before, so they start attacking the chopper's lights. So Nick Van Owen gives Roland's bullets to Malcolm and grabs 2 flashlights he got from one of the houses in the worker village. He runs out as the chopper leaves, sacrificing himself for his friends as he is killed by pterosaurs. Now this is a big jump the shark moment for me, since killing Nick Van Owen off would become as a big shock to most people, but I think it would be fitting since we never really see him in the film after this, and it also gives Kelly a more reason to cry afterwards. The part with Roland leaving remains unchanged. You just have a little bit more context as to why he left. However, now we get to the boat scene. I have seen countless, and I mean countless, theories on what killed the crew, but I decided to go with the most likely reason. Raptors. But not just any raptors. Quilled raptors from Jurassic Park 3. Now I know this is a really big leap, but I do have evidence though, and this is still a rewrite after all, so I'm changing the story anyway, and Jurassic Park 3 will be changed too. We know that the quilled raptors, unlike Ceratosaurus, Coryphosaurus, Ankylosaurus, and Spinosaurus, my beloved, were on the island before. The raptors, 3 of them to be exact, would sneak on the boat the Rex was being kept on and kill the crew members. It could not have been the tiger raptors, since it was established that they were only staying in the middle of the island. We really don't know where the quilled raptors lived, though. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that the quilled raptors were a lot smarter than the tiger raptors. I mean, they were definitely a lot smarter than the tiger raptors in the original novel, but I think they're a lot smarter than the ones in the movie, too. And we do actually know that raptors ended up on America somehow, since there was actual footage on the Jurassic World Dino Tracker app, which is actually canon, showing that 2 raptors, a male and a female, had escaped onto America. But wait, didn't I say that 3 raptors snuck onto the boat and killed the people? Well, one of the raptors would actually be shot and killed on the boat attack, which Malcolm actually discovers. This is a rewrite after all, so I can really add whatever I want. After this point, the rest of the movie stays relatively the same. I did not want to change the Rex breakout in San Diego scene since I really liked that scene. I was just cutting out 2 parts, mainly some meta ones, with the Japan people running away and the original writer for The Lost World running towards a car instead of directly to the camera. And that's it. 16 minutes in, and we have finished up. This is the part of the video where I give context as to why I made some decisions right here. I don't really have to do it right now since I kind of went over it during the rewrite. This might be like that in the future too, but I know a lot of people might not like the ideas I've pitched, but this is how I thought I can make the film better. Now I'm going to go over my personal opinion on the film, so I will go ahead and go with my thoughts on the movie. This film is boring to me. Now, a lot of people consider this film to be the only good sequel to the Jurassic movies, and yeah, I can see that it has the best plot, characters and stuff, but honestly, this is the film in the franchise that I have the least to say about. Just movie good, rolling tempo good, T-Rex is good, kill raptor scene bad, Pteranodon underused, and San Diego good, yeah. I also find it the least funny to me. Not that the Jurassic movies need to be funny. The first movie was funny, and it had some pretty good jokes while staying consistent with the tone. This one is really dark throughout the first and second half, and dramatically switching toward the third act. Now, one of my favorite movies of all time, Kung Fu Panda 2, does have this similar effect, with it dramatically switching tone through the middle of the movie. But I am really invested in the characters in there, and it still pulls off some pretty funny jokes. Here, as much as I love Jeff Goldblum, I'm not really attached to his character. I'm not that attached to Sarah Harding or Nick Van Owen. The only character I'm really closest to is Roland Timbo. And even then, it's more of my rewrite, since it actually gives him full-on context. And the scenes that make him better were actually deleted. Also, some of the jokes that it does attempt aren't really that funny to me. Like, there's a scene where, in the T-Rex breakout in San Diego, where there are these Japan people running from the T-Rex, clearly referencing Godzilla. And as much as I'm a Godzilla fan, I'm just wondering why it's even there. Another scene that was painfully unfunny was when the T-Rex was in the backyard. And when the kid is waking up his parents, the parents blame a freaking goldfish on their son describing a dinosaur. How would you think that a goldfish is what their son describes as a dinosaur? The only thing I can think of it was for laughs. But it's not funny. Also, is it just me, or does the worker village scene seem very similar to when Ellie Sattler is dodging the raptors in the first movie? However, this is just my opinion on the film, and you can like whatever you like. It's just not my cup of tea. Next time we do one of these, it will be Jurassic Park 3, and oh boy, that will be fun. It's honestly gonna get harder from here as we go on. I've already got some basic ideas for Dominion and Jurassic World 1. Spoiler for later, but I'm going to almost entirely change the entire plot for Jurassic World Dominion, with it connecting Malta and Biosyn better. That's all 5 pages of the script done. Wow. See you later. I'm Gabriel Dillon.